Yo, what's going on, True Blazer fans? It's Tori, and I'm here with a late Monday mailbag. Now, it's been a struggle today as I've been waiting for my voice to kind of get back to where it needs to be to record this. It's the beginning of cold and flu season, and I've had a cold, and then I went to that Blazer game yesterday, and I didn't even get that loud until the fourth quarter, but I still immediately pretty much lost my voice. So today, I've just been waiting for my voice to get back, and now it's 7 o'clock and I feel like my voice is about 80%, so I feel good to go for this video. So before we jump into this mailbag, I gotta talk about the jerseys that Portland debuted last night. It was their new city jersey, and I don't think necessarily that these jerseys are bad. I just wish they still went with something plaid. I wish every year for that city edition jersey, since they release a new one every single season, I wish they'd have a new, fresh spin on the plaid look. It has a lot of deep connections with Dr. Jack, and it just kind of is a good representation of the city of Portland. I feel like we wear a lot of plaid. It's just a fresh design, especially if used faintly like it was last year. You know, I'm not saying go crazy with the plaid, but if it's subtle but still stands out enough, it's perfect. So not only do I think we need to stick with a plaid look for our city edition uniforms, but I also think we should do something with the court for those uniforms, just like the Miami Heat have done this year, and the Utah Jazz did last year and this year as well with their orange, red, sunset, sunrise thing they got going on. I think it'd be cool if we had a plaid court to go along with our plaid uniforms. Now this is just a little mock-up that I created. The paint is plaid, and it'd probably need to be a little bit more subtle than this, you know, maybe different tints of red, but I just think it'd be cool if you had a plaid design like this. Maybe the lighter tan area inside the three-point arc, maybe that was a lighter plaid version of tan, and then outside of that in your half court, the darker tan, maybe that could be plaid as well, a little bit darker shade. Keep the shading, but just make it all plaid. On other courts, they have parquet designs. Think of the Boston Celtics court. They have different designs in the hardwood. Imagine if you figured out a way to make that look like plaid, and then a red plaid in the paint to go along with plaid uniforms. I think that's a top-notch idea. Let me know what you guys think about that idea down in the comment section below. With all that being said, let's jump into today's mailbag. Nikos Kodakris says, what about trading CJ and Harkless or CJ and ET for an all-star forward? If that happens, who will be our starting shooting guard? There's no all-star forwards available right now. It's not like it was a year or two ago where you had Paul George and Jimmy Butler getting traded, and then last offseason you had Kawhi Leonard getting traded. There's really nobody available on the market. I think the best small forward that you could possibly get is Otto Porter Jr. for the Washington Wizards, but that's not worth trading CJ for. So it's a good idea in theory, but it's not realistic with where the rest of the NBA is right now. In that scenario though, I think you'd probably start Stauskas or Curry. I think I like Curry in that situation a little bit more because he's a little better ball handler. You need a secondary ball handler next to Dame. Stauskas would give you more size in the backcourt, but Curry I think is a better defender than him. But that's just all hypothetical because there is not an all-star level forward available right now. Leo Vitali says, what do you think about trading for someone like DeMarre Carroll? He would be a nice bench or starting power forward. Could potentially trade Myers and maybe a second rounder. The Brooklyn Nets want to preserve as much cap space for next offseason as possible. They're looking to go after like Kevin Durant or DeMarcus Cousins, who I think is probably going to end up in Brooklyn. That's just a weird hunch I have, but they want max cap space for at least 2 star-level free agents. So I don't see them taking on a contract like Myers Leonard just for a second-round pick and getting rid of DeMarre Carroll. That would make no sense to them. You'd have to include a first, but I still don't think they do it because they want that cap space. The only way you can make a deal like that work is if you include Al-Farouq Aminu, but Aminu is just as good as DeMarre Carroll in my opinion. He's a little better defender, a little worse shooter, so that makes no sense at all. And DeMarre Carroll makes $15 million, and Al-Farouq Aminu is only making $7 million. So actually making salaries match without giving the Brooklyn Nets any salary for next offseason would be very, very tough. So although he's a nice player, I just don't think that's necessarily a viable trade idea. I do love talking about trade ideas though, so if you guys have any more, make sure to send them my way down in the comment section below. Definitive one back again. Number 1. Do you miss Mike Rice and Barrett calling the games at all, and would you bring back one or both if you could? Perhaps a combo like Lamar Hurd with Barrett. Calabro just doesn't seem like a fan of the team to me. He is a good commentator in my opinion, and I don't really think he's not a fan of the team. You know, he's a Sonics fan first. If they came back, then it'd be like, okay, let that man go back and commentate the Sonics like he has in the past. Then maybe you'd talk about bringing Mike Barrett back. But Calabro has an affinity for the Portland Trail Blazers in the way he commentates. Now, is that an affinity in general? Who knows? But I do think he brings a good level of enthusiasm to the game. I don't really have a problem with Hurd. He's actually pretty insightful. I know a lot of people don't like him because he kind of cracks jokes here and there that might be a little bit cringy, but I honestly think they're a solid commentating duo, and when we're doing well, they're going to be a lot more liked than when we're not doing well. That's what I've noticed over the past 3 seasons, so I think people are finally getting used to them calling the games. Remember when Brian Wheeler took over and they got rid of Sean's, many people hated that, and now Brian Wheeler might be the best radio guy in the entire league. Part 2 of his question, I'm loving this Houston Rockets train wreck because I always thought they were vastly overrated. Who's your most over and underrated teams in the league right now and why? Houston wasn't overrated last year. They were overrated going into this year because 1, Carmelo sucks, so adding him wasn't going to help them at all. 2, they lost 2 very good defenders in Trevor Ariza and Luka Mbah-a-Moute, so that is killing their defense. And 3, Chris Paul is going to decline at some point. He's getting up there in age, and this year looks to be like his decline. So I think that's why they were overrated going into this season. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are very overrated. I don't think they're a top 4 team in the West at all. I think they're going to struggle to make the playoffs. They're kind of treading water right now with Westbrook out, but Dennis Schroeder as a bench piece, and especially alongside Westbrook in that backcourt, gives you 2 guys that can't really shoot and need the ball in their hands. I don't think he's a good fit. Experts, and I quote that with my fingers, we're talking about them as a team that can contend for the Western Conference Finals. I just don't see it. Underrated? Before Karis LeVert's recent injury, I would have said the Brooklyn Nets because they're playing very well, and Karis LeVert looked to be the front runner for most improved. He was playing like an all-star, but he recently just broke his leg like 30 minutes ago. I was actually pretty upset when I heard that. I watched the video. It's very gruesome. It's much like Gordon Hayward's injury last year, so if you struggle watching that type of thing, I don't advise you watch it. I'd say the Kings might be the most underrated team in the league so far this year. De'Aaron Fox is taking that next step. Willie Cauley-Stein is having his best season so far. Bogdan Bogdanovic has barely played, and he's underrated as well. He's a very solid starting wing to have. Bielitsa is killing it from the 3-point line this year. They have a lot of solid bigs. Marvin Bagley might be the best big man off the bench in the entire league. Sacramento is 7-6, and they've beaten some decent teams during that schedule, so they could fall off a cliff, who knows, but I think so far they're probably the most underrated team. The Brennanator asks, part 1, do you think it would be smarter to get as much of our points in the paint or behind the arc? I assume you mean less mid-range, but I don't really hate the mid-range shot as long as good mid-range shooters are shooting them. If a guy's not going to shoot mid-range and he starts to drive, you just know all you have to do is turn your hips and run alongside them and beat them to the rim. However, when you turn your hips, it makes it impossible to defend against a mid-range shot, so I think it's good to have that shot in the bag just so guys have to respect that and they can't just turn their hips and try and beat you to the rim when you start your drive. Part 2, when 2019 free agency comes around, who should we resign and look to target like Trevor Ariza? I would try and resign Stauskas and Curry. Who knows if it's even possible though? Since Curry and Stauskas only signed 1-year deals, it's going to be hard to resign them, and we're going to have to use the little bit of money that we do have in terms of exceptions. We're going to have to use that on those guys just to bring them back. We don't have their bird rights like we do free agents that have played here for 3 years, so it's almost like those guys are the same as other free agents for us. But depending on how the season ends, right now, I'd probably try and bring those 2 guys back. I really like the way they fit with Evan Turner. Maybe bring him back on another 1-year deal, fit him in with Turner, run it back with the bench unit because the bench unit has been great. Danny P asks, what are your thoughts on the Blazer uniform since Nike took over last season? Would you ever do a uniform history video? A uniform history video would be a good idea for maybe the offseason or the All-Star break when we have a little bit of downtime. That's a good video idea. Thank you for that. I like the white and black uniforms. I think they're a little bit more modern. I think they're better. I think they're more fresh. I loved the plaid uniform last year. That was a great idea. I wish they ran it back like I said at the beginning of this video. The red jerseys, I don't like that there's no white or gray in them. I think there needs to be a little bit of trim, a third color in there. But overall, I think Nike's done a very solid job. And that's all the questions you guys had for me today. Make sure to leave your question down in the comment section below for a chance to be featured in next week's Monday mailbag. The Boston Celtics game recap will be coming tomorrow, so I hope you guys are excited for that. So that's all I got for now. This has been Tori. Peace out, True Blazer fans. Go Blazers.